Hi, I'm Kristen, and this is Scrap Fabric Love.
Okay, so today we're going to make a fun take on a selvage quilt block. So I don't know about you, but I like to save these pretty selvages from the edge of my fabric. And if you've ever watched the channel, you also know I like to color coordinate things. So that's what I'm doing today, a little color coordinated selvage edge quilt block that uses layer cakes. So what I need to make this quilt block is one layer cake square and a bunch of selvages. You can color coordinate them or not, but I am. The layer cake square is going to be both our foundation and our background fabric. So you are going to see it. It isn't all going to get covered. This is just like an off-white cream. That's what I'm going to use. So the first thing I need to do is move these aside. We'll deal with these in a second. Is mark some lines in this layer cake square. So this is a 2.5 inch wide ruler. So I am going to put it right up to the edge of my square like that. And then I'm going to just use whatever, you can use a friction pen. I'm trying these now. These are Clover water soluble pencils. This is a blue one because it's on like a light background. So I'm going to try that today. And I'm just going to draw a line. Okay, so that's one. And then on the other side, same thing. I'm going to turn it around because I'm left-handed. Okay. So now I have two blue lines on my layer cake square. So now I'm going to put the layer cake square aside for just a second. And I'm going to deal with my selvages on my very dirty coffee stained cutting mat. Don't judge. Right. So I've got these all color coordinated. They're too long. So what I want is 5-inch strips of these. And I'm going to kind of fussy cut them in a way so that I can see that, there's like cool stuff on here. So let's see what I can get so this is a 5-inch square. I think I'll keep the bird in there for this one. And it doesn't matter how wide, you decide what you like. So this is about kind of displaying the selvages that you like the look of. So, and I can get another one. I'll use that in something else, like a crumb quilting project. The Ruby Star selvages are so cool because they're thick anyway, and they're printed. I always really like using those ones. So I think I will do that. And then I'll just put these two bits in my crumb box and they'll be fine. Right. So I've got those, and then I'm going to cut these down. Similarly, if there's something I want to fussy cut, I'll do that. But otherwise, I'll just cut them down to 5-inch lengths. Okay, so I've cut my selvages. As you can see, I've got 3 piles of color coordinatedness. I've got some blue, some pink, and some orange. They're all just 5-inch wide. And I've included some that have the writing on and some that don't. So whatever floats your boat, anything's fine. Okay, so next I'm going to build up my selvages. And I'm going to do it with some kind of glue. So I've got a fabric glue here, or you could people use school glue, glue sticks, whatever you want. Okay, and because we've got a foundation, we don't have to worry too much about how layered they are. So this is about how you like the look of them. So I'm going to put this pink one here to start. Don't need a lot of glue, just enough to hold it in place. All right, and we're just trying to put the strip in between the 2 lines that we drew. Right, what do I want next? I'm going to go for that one. Okay, and you can make your own choices about whether you want these, what do you call it, the frayy bit at the edge of the selvage to show, or if you want to tuck it under, what you want to hide. I kind of like the look of it. So part of this block for me is just about showing off the pretty selvages and having a bit of texture from that. So I'm just going to layer it a little bit. And you can choose what you want to do. So I'm just going to layer this all up in a way that I like the look of.
We are going to be stitching these down, and ideally we're going to be stitching through 2 at a time where they layer. So make sure there's enough of an overlap that you can catch 2 selvages when you stitch. But otherwise you can kind of just play with what looks nice and build that up all the way to the top.
I've glued down 3, one pink, one orange, and one, ooh, can't see it, one blue. Okay, so there's actually not that much left. What we need to do now is stitch these down onto the foundation. So I'm going to use a stitch length of 3, so like a quilting stitch length basically. And I'm going to use a fairly neutral thread, but you could use something to match the salvages if that's what you want to do. And I'm just going to stitch along at least 1 per salvage, but preferably 2. So 1 nearest the top, 1 nearest the bottom. But all we're doing is trying to attach them onto here, and there's going to be more stitching that's going to attach it. So, and because we're on a foundation, there's not going to be any batting showing through or anything like that. So if you want to leave these to sort of ruffle up, that's fine. But like stitch somewhere above here and somewhere roughly here. So I'm going to go and stitch all those down, and then I'll show you the next and last fun step. Okay, so I'm at the machine. I don't need to stitch too close to this edge because obviously if I join this block to something, it's going to get stitched there. So I'm going to do 1 on this first one, and then I'm going to go along and I'm not going to chain stitch because I don't want to stitch along here. So I am going to break threads, or you could turn around, I suppose, but I'm going to break threads at the end. I'm not back stitching because we're going to secure these ends a different way. So you don't need to worry about that. Okay.
So I'm just making sure that I'm catching the 2 selvages at once where they overlap. That's the key thing. And that should be good enough to hold it secure.
Okay, so here's the block stitched down. Now, I did press it because I wanted to get rid of some ripples in the selvages. However, that has kind of erased my lines. So ideally we would do this first. Anyway, so what I would like to do is be able to see the line that I drew here, and I'm folding this back, but since I can't see the line, I'm just going to use my ruler and see if I can get, yeah, there's my 2.5. Okay, so I wasn't recording when I was doing what I was supposed to be doing there. Basically all I've done is folded this back. I should be able to see my line, but I've ironed my line off, so I can't see it. But I just want to make sure these 2 are equal, and then trim off any little bits of selvage that are hanging off that are a bit further than the line that you drew earlier. So that's all we're doing. You can try it with a rotary cutter, but it's risky. You can end up slicing the background squares, so do it your own caution. Right, back to the sewing machine. So I've got my block here, and all I'm going to do is fold this over by about 1/4 inch. We don't have to be massively precise because we can trim these blocks down, but we would like it to be fairly even. So if you want to pin, you can pin, or you can just wing it. So it's just like that. So I've got a fold on here. Can you see? So this is a folded edge, and it's just to cover those raw edges. And then if you check with your ruler, you can't see, but I can see where it's folded there. It's about 1/4 inch, okay? And then I'm using my top stitch again, and all I'm doing is getting as close to the folded edge as I can. So if you think about when you're stitching down binding, similar to that. And I'm using that top stitch length again. And then I just take it slow and make sure everything is folded over and covering those raw edges. How pretty and neat that looks. And I'm going to do the other side. So again, I'm just going to fold it over that 1/4 inch. Easier if I do it this way. A little tip if you're struggling with this, because I did this, you can see the stitch line. I've just unpicked this because I didn't stitch it evenly. So what I'm going to do is fold it over so that it's fairly straight on my selvages. Put my ruler here,
find the 1/4 inch and line it up with the fold. And then fold it back and get a kind of crease line there if you can. Or you could slowly remove the ruler and do your pins. If you've got one of those, I don't have one, but if you have one of those rulers that you can iron on top of it now, and you'll get the crease, and then you'll know exactly where to fold it and sew it. And here's another angle of what it should look like when it's stitched.
So depending how accurate your sewing has been, you can cut this down to sort of 9.5 by 8.5, probably at the outside. If you want to make it a bit smaller, you want to make it 9 by 8, and just make sure that you've got lines, the stitch lines lined up on your ruler so that the background fabric is even, and all your blocks the same size. But so you trim it down to the size that suits you. So I'm going for 9.5 by 8.5.
Welcome to the channel to anyone who's new. I do lots of scrappiness like this. I generally wing it, and I don't follow a whole heck of a lot of quilt rules.
Okay, so you're going to trim yours more precisely than me, but just to give you an idea here, we could line them up in let me get that bigger for you. We could line them up in a quilt like that and do some sort of rainbow gradation thing, or you could sash them and have them be standalone blocks if you have some sashing the same color as your background squares. Loads of things you could do with them, or you could put two together, make them into a pouch or something like that. If you like the idea of the sashing and you don't actually have as many selvages, I've also played around with a version where I didn't fill the whole middle, which I think looks quite nice. So instead of just making the 2 lines here, I marked a 5-inch square and covered that with my selvages, this time not color coordinated. And I still did the same thing here. So this is loose here. You can see it is stitched, but you can see I can lift up and you can see the line that I drew there. Can you? Maybe. So you could do another stitch there. I probably should have done. But anyway, just so you can see how I did it. How I marked it. I should have stitched there though. If you do it, stitch there. Right. So a few ways to play with it. Put one salvage, put all sorts of selvages, and just have fun. But I like the way these panels break it up. And I think it could make quite a fun selvage quilt. I don't know how far I'm going to go with this myself, because I've got a few more of these layer cake squares, but probably not enough for a whole quilt. So I might have to do a double background quilt if I was going to do it. But I might make some pouches out of these because I quite like the color coordinateness. So anyway, I hope you have fun with this, however you choose to use it. If you like scrappy quilt blocks, scrappy quilts, all that fun stuff, and you're not already subscribed, I hope you'll consider it. And thanks so much for spending time with me. Hope to see you next time. Bye.
If you'd like the written version of this tutorial, you'll find a link in the video description.